Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Veterans Today News Reports. I'm your host, Stu Webb, and today is June the 4th, 2014, and we're going to have an incredible program today, and we're going to have a total exposure of the event of September the 11th, 2001. Evidence has come forward. I have two special guests. And we're talking evidence, folks. We're not talking Budster land, guessing, so-called investigations. We're talking evidence. I have Gordon Duff, editor of Veterans Today, that is on with us. I have Professor James Fetzer. Both of them are the top experts in this. And evidence, as I said, has come forward. Are you on, Gordon?
Here at Auto Bank, we have over 100 quality pre-owned cars for under $10,000. Auto Bank, 435 Front Street. We can always bank on a great deal.
Are you on with me, Jim? Are we broadcasting here? I'm not sure whether we are or not, whether they have my guest hooked up. I'm assuming I'm still live. There's several stories people need to look at. They're on Veterans Today, and they're incredible. The evidence has been put out. VT nuclear education. Education undeniable proof of 9/11 as a nuclear event by Gordon Duff. VT nuclear terrorism educational series. Nuclear educational series. Diamania classified. VT nuclear education series again. Constructing the nuclear child. Doc submitted by Russian intel. New cancer from 9/11 revealed, which are over 70,000 people have cancer from this. Too classified to publish. Bush nuclear piracy exposed. These are part of this series of articles. I see that they're still working on my guest. Are either one of you on with me, Jim Fetzer or
I'm
Gordon Duff? Jim, are you on? Gordon, are you on with us?
Yeah, I'm actually on here. Let's see. Return to call in progress. Yeah, I've got one of these dishpan Samsung, Note 3 phones here, so I had to go through 10 or 11 screens just to find the call.
Oh, I appreciate you being on with us today. And
do we have Fetzer on with us?
I'm here, Gordon.
Oh, cool. So we're past whatever news is going on or whatever, and we're live going, and we're live right now. Yes, are we live?
We are live, Gordon.
Okay.
I brought up the fact of you put out incredible evidence on 9/11, and I'm going to let you roll with it. I'm going to talk to you.
Yeah, Jim, be patient with me here. Let me run for a bit because I just got off some material here, and what I'm trying to do is, and for heaven only knows, I think pretty much I'm assuming people know who I am, or think they know who I am, or if they think they know who I am, I may just finally end up telling them who I am, or worse yet, showing them. And that, if you think that's a threat, take it as a threat. Take it as a threat beyond anything you can deal with. I'm not an activist by any means. I'm out here as part of the military and intelligence community. We are not we're not here as press. We're not selling any books. I don't want any of your money. I represent some of the most powerful financial and military institutions in the world, working directly with the largest intelligence agencies in the world. We don't care. Now, something we've gone through in the last couple of days. Today, most of us in this country that get email, were hit with an Alex Jones InfoWar piece saying that Edward Snowden, and I will simply tell you he's the Mossad CIA hangout sitting in Moscow, that Snowden had mentioned 9/11, and of course, in this case, his boyish little attempt to sell the last 30 seconds of the 9/11 cover-up to MSNBC, or NBC in his case. I think Microsoft has bailed on them, which even NBC refused to carry. So Alex Jones is trying to reprocess this, that a caveman somewhere shut down NORAD's satellite systems, or Raytheon Lockheed J-Lin's system, that shut down all of our air defenses, which, by the way, for the most part, for the coastal areas inland, 600 miles in the U.S., are handled by Aegis ships. We have 37 of them. They protect the coastal United States, as they protect, by the way, the coast of Israel. Aegis are systems that, and this is one of the things in selling the 9/11 idiocy that the nanothermite sniffers push and whatever else. Well, NORAD's radar doesn't see below 6,000 feet. The only reason we have radar protection around the United States, which is primarily synthetic aperture look-down radar to see through clouds, everything, even ground, is because it protects against low-flying intrusion bombers. And since 1982, there has been no strategy. That's several years ago, and some of you guys weren't even born then. Since 1982, the nuclear superpowers, United States and others, have all moved to low-flying aircraft that fly at 300 feet and below, or cruise missiles, as the primary deterrent, because increasingly ICBMs are subject to shoot down. An Aegis ship can shoot down an ICBM. An S-300, 400 Russian air defense system can shoot down ICBMs like nothing. Have been able to do it for years and years. It's all down to low penetration, all off submarines, diesel submarines. It's all about getting in close, dropping them off planes and coming in. It's all coming in 15 feet off the ground, like the missile that hit the Pentagon, 15 feet off the ground. Not a blade of grass disturbed, not a seat, not a napkin, no underwear, no old lady's toes anywhere. The insanity. Well, taking the story back here, Snowden and Jones, the last 5 minutes. What we're dealing with right now in the world is we have a serious meltdown where anybody that's got their head screwed on right is beginning to see the signs of August 1914, a world war. The United States and Western Europe has pretty much taken on, admittedly, that Al-Qaeda is now and has always been an independent military organization run by the West, run by the CIA, Mossad, and others. The roots of Al-Qaeda, as we know it, had always been the stay-behind networks of Gladio, had always come from the Chechen rebels that the CIA had trained, had always been within the Mujahideen/Taliban, had always been tied to Colonel Timothy Osman, the Bush family associate, also known as Osama bin Laden, the bin Laden family being prime business partners of the Bush family and the Carlyle Group, which is the neocon defense monolith that controls much of what goes on in the world. What we have had happen over the last couple of weeks has been, and this is interestingly enough, we've had devastating material out there. That material has validated the work of a number of people who were very right all along. One who hides in the shadows is Michael Blacksford, whose company has manufactured nuclear carrier equipment and has followed the trail of nuclear weapons through the arms industry of Britain and illegal transit, moving across Britain in trucks, moving in and out of Farnborough RAF base, Fairford, and others. We have tracked the theft of 350 W-54 warheads. These are nuclear artillery warheads. This has been confirmed with U.S. Army military. These are nuclear intelligence officers who are familiar with the weapons, who have handled these weapons, who know all of the design criteria of these weapons, how to set them up, how to alter their output. These weapons that the U.S. has been sending for destruction to the Pentex plant in Amarillo, Texas for years and years and years have been going right out the back door. We have UN arms proliferation, nuclear proliferation investigators who have sent us photographs of their recovery efforts of nuclear pits and nuclear weapons that were lost in the crash of a Shackleton bomber in North Africa. We have the crews recovering the weapons. I have the photos sitting here. I'm going to publish them. We have another story here, and some of these are developing, and the rationale here for this is that within the groups, the 9/11 Truth groups, the activist groups that the rest of us are running away from, we found more than reasonable evidence that a significant number of people who some have done valuable work, have always been or are now assets totally under the control of the Federal Bureau of Investigation and intelligence agencies, particularly the Mossad, and it makes up most. Everyone who mentions nanothermites is an intelligence agent. There is no such thing. Never been made. Didn't exist. You know, I was reading a Dr. Stephen Jones piece that the FBI, and we tracked down the website, paid to have put on the internet, supposedly debunking the work of Dr. Fetzer, who is our other guest on here. I had physicists look at his work, and Jones is supposedly a physicist. They said it was utterly insane. We're getting intelligence dumps out of French, Russian, and other agencies. The UN non-proliferation groups are dumping their files on us now because they are, I won't say they're in a panic. They're angry over Syria. They're angry over Ukraine, the insanity of the U.S. and Ukraine. The U.S. has lost its mind, totally. They're angry about the U.S. insanity in trying to push a war in the Far East between Japan and China, pretending that China is trying to take over the world when they're trying to extend air defenses 150 miles off their own shore. We're 7,000 miles away. All entirely made up. China has absolutely no capability of projecting military force. They have no troops overseas. The U.S. at last count had overt and clandestine forces in 150 countries. The Chinese don't have any anywhere. None. They don't have troops on anybody else's territory. We're making it all up. All of it. Then the anti-Russian propaganda, that the insane propaganda the press is putting out. And the parallels in the press that are disturbing me is that the fanatic Mossad Zionist controlled press, and just call it what it is. Live with it. Wall Street Journal, Huffington Post, Daily Beast, New York Times, Washington Post. I may have said that twice. We're saying twice. They are bombarding us with stories when read and looked for sources. They are fabricating one story after another, totally fabricating much of the news that we're seeing. This is we're at a point of threat that has finally reached intelligence agencies. And toward this point, it's now time to kick to the curb all of the amateurs. We mentioned Blatchford. We'll mention Don Fox, Ed Ward, Jeff Prager, who would race across the street before finding the guilty guilty. We'll mention Michael Shrimpton, the man who discovered the nuclear threat against the Olympics, but refused to name those responsible because he's in denial about it. And they sold him down the river, and he's facing some nasty consequences for outing something. Dmitry Kolozov, a man who has been largely right all along. Me for knowing everybody, I pretty much know everyone. More of this story will come out here in the next few minutes from Jim Fetzer. Now, I have sent, over the last couple of hours, I will tell you, to intelligence agencies in several countries, a request for more of their files, and I have been publishing their files and, frankly, editing things that I can't put out there. And, I'd said this long before, that, and it's up to 40% of the material, we have to disguise, we have to go between the lines, because I'm certainly not going to put formulas out on hydrogen bomb lenses. As we're getting more information out of the nuclear explosions of the World Trade Center, weeks ago, the story for those who could see it, and if you didn't see it, I'll just tell you that call me arrogant about this, I don't care. I'm only talking here to senior military personnel, diplomatic personnel, world leaders that I know and deal with. That's all I'm talking to. And if you're out there and you're understanding this, then you're part of the solution with us. And we're glad to have you on board. And if you don't understand any of this at all, it may be Stu's show, but please leave. I don't care. I don't want to hear from you. Don't care. Don't need your money. Don't care for your approval. Don't care if you hate me. Don't care if you love me. If you're an idiot, please hate me. Please. I just don't care. We're done here. It's time for serious people to stand up and do something about saving what little we have left while we can. Admitting we don't have elections in the United States, we're the most corrupt country on earth, that while Oath Keepers runs around wanting to protect our weapons rights and sign up county sheriffs, well, these same county sheriffs, one after another, years and years ago, had to switch from their normal masters, the people who ran prostitutes and sold crack, who usually own the county sheriffs. They're now working for larger cartels. Law enforcement in this country has been utterly corrupt forever. Judges in this country have always worked for big business. It's now far worse. It's now multinational. In no way does any aspect of any level of government of the United States answer to any people of the United States in any way. Call it the disease of the party system or whatever. State governors, one after another, in this last election, were bought by Sheldon Adelson and the Koch brothers. I have, if you want to know if you've been really, really stupid, and please be offended by this, because stupid people deserve to be offended. Global warming is real. The worst human beings on earth that I can name right off, I even like Sheldon Adelson, actually. He's a scoundrel, but he has guts. I respect that. The Koch brothers, who control the oil futures market, who are bleeding you to death every time you buy gas. You give them a gallon of, they personally make $1 a gallon. And they are, and everything you buy, and they are spending that money convincing you there's no such thing as global warming. And some of you just love to take that message because you think it's coming from somewhere magic. Well, you're buying disease. Everything you read on the internet, every email you open, you never check where it comes from. This is me talking down to people who, frankly, need to be talked down to because that's where you are. You're down. When you open an email and you send it around, or you send money to people, and you don't know who they are, you don't know that you're working for Wall Street, you don't know that you're working for organized crime, that they're smart enough that they know what to tell you because they know how weak you are and how you're looking to go after the Negro president or any easy target. They know this. Now, what we're asking for now is we're asking for the specific shipping routes on stolen nuclear weapons, and it is hundreds of them. We have published specific information on how pits have been remachined. I have published non-specific information on how these weapons were remanufactured, how the pits were remachined, and I have published the scientific documentation describing how and why it's to be done. And to anybody out there who knows the business, we have already proven the nuclear case for 9/11. We have proven who is involved: Bush, Mossad, and others. We have named operators in this, and others that are frankly working with us have come forward that were involved with the Bush family are now cooperating. We are told that at the heart of this is Victor Booth, the Lord of War. Anybody who remembers the movie with Nicolas Cage? Well, it wasn't about him selling tanks and guns to people. Nicolas Cage sold nuclear pits, and when he got picked up, the Israelis had to do this themselves. Now, we're following a confirmed story of the sinking of 2 Israeli submarines. We knew we had one, and that's the night of May 2nd, May 3rd, I believe 2:36 a.m. off Syria. We were told the Syrians did it. We are now confirmed that an Aegis ship of the United States Navy sunk an Israeli submarine. And well, I'm just reading this. I just read it. I'll pass it on. You take judgment. In retaliation for the USS Liberty. I'm asking for information. They're saying that the U.S. took down a second. The United States Navy unilaterally sunk a second Israeli submarine. That the Israelis changed serial numbers on subs, altered crew rosters. I'm reading it off an intelligence document right now. Ordered 2 submarines to replace it from Germany, and that they paid for those submarines by sending the Germans nuclear weapons. This is where this is going. And we are following, and we'll see how far we get. But we're unraveling all of it. And everyone's speaking any other way. I mean, any of the overt stories out there, Setzer and others put these to sleep long ago. The nuclear weapons used on the World Trade Center. Setzer had it, and we're finding out who had it right. So much was right with Kolozov. So much was right with Prager, who is, and no one's perfect here. Neutron bombs. But we are told these are neutron bombs with for those out here, with a 3% fission initiator. And if you've got the clearance for it, and I don't have the clearance to pass the documents out, I can show you the lens design on it. I can show you what the shielding looked like on these weapons. I can tell you how they were made. These are very recent designs, remachined in Israel off the oblong pits of W-54 warheads, oversized pits that were deteriorated, and I'm not a physicist, is Americanium or American? Americanium, I believe, is the material that the plutonium had degenerated into. We have the plans for how these were remachined, how they were built, and how these were turned into a near-pure fusion weapon, capable of creating, and we'll call it an unusual type of explosion that put out a tremendous amount of heat for a tiny fraction of a second, that dissolved, vaporized, not dustified, vaporized the steel on the upper floors of a couple of significant buildings. The story goes further. There were more things involved in demolition. We have signs of cut beams. We have incidents on the lower floors. We have confirmations of there being other types of fission-based weapons used within the bedrock that burn for months and months. Who would do that? Why would they do it? Well, in the year 2000, when the U.S. government was overthrown by the worldwide, let's call it the secret shadow government, Dr. Preston James, who gets it very, very right over and over and over again. If you don't know it, you're still eating and driving around and you think you're free. It's an illusion. When the Bush family put their claws into you, when you began opening emails, when you began watching Alex Jones or listening to him, when you began reading Dr. Stephen Jones, when you began reading about nanothermite or reading the NIST or worshiping John McCain or ignoring the hundreds of billions of dollars of narcotics that the CIA has been pumping around the world, or the heinous and illegal acts of the United States government. And we are a reprehensible lot. This is a Marine telling you this. If you think things are okay and you like this, you're part of the problem. And it's not going to be solved in any election in this country. I'm not going to tell anyone anything to do. We don't have elections in this country. Mr. Fetzer, that's as long as I care to bang people in the head. I've been having one of those days today.
Well, Gordon, you've been publishing so many important articles. I've been blown away. The one on the cancer deaths, on the way in which the nuclear weapons were transferred by the Bush-Cheney administration to Israel, this latest about nuclear education, EMPs and all that. I just think it's been a spectacular string for you, Gordon, and I got to say I'm just tremendously impressed, and I'm sure everyone else.
I haven't done it. I haven't done any of this, Jeff. Entirely. All I do is this. I'm CEO of a publicly traded multinational defense company with multi-billion-dollar cash and lines of credit. We work in intelligence, reconnaissance, surveillance, special operations. We operate satellite systems. We work around the world. We're fairly low key. We're very tightly. We're publicly traded, but we're closely held. So I'm not that accountable. I just got back from Africa not long ago, leading with military intelligence and political leaders there, and none of them there or in the Middle East want to hear any of this stuff out of the newspapers. If I tried passing on any of this narrative you hear from Mrs. Clinton or Kerry or certainly the neocon Israeli, God only knows what goes on, I'd be a laughing stock. We have developed a duality of information that's unbelievable. No one of any substance in the world, other than the most ignorant, and this is where the most ignorant people in the U.S. are. They work for the FBI, the CIA, and are in the U.S. government. People who are paid to be blind, who will sit there at the teat of organized crime. And where Stu, this is Stu's particular area, behind all of this, we find a very, very genuine Satanist conspiracy. It's absolutely real. Absolute. And I'm not a religious guy. I'm a total dyed-in-the-wool atheist, 100%. You don't get any more than I have. Fetzer and I sat around the house and talked about this. You couldn't find a cross or menorah in this place. Lots of books on religion. I'm a religious scholar. But we have a mass of people across Europe and the United States who have a fanatical belief in biblical prophecy and have decided that they're on the side of what they believe are the fallen angels, that I don't believe exist, kind of. Except I have people tell me that some of the stuff they're doing actually works. And I don't know what to say about that. You know, I know what people tell me. I know what I see. You know, and if I don't, I'm an intelligence officer. If I don't separate those things out, I'm not of any use to anyone. This is the problem I've always had with Dmitry Talazov. For those of you who know this, there's a wonderful interview on YouTube, despite the fact that I'm in it, with Dmitry Talazov done by Kevin Barrett and Gordon Duff. I suggest you pick that up. And Talazov, who I find him a wonderful person, but he doesn't separate what he knows from what people tell him. And that's something very different. We have very strict rules in intelligence about what represents proof. It's the same way it's supposed to be in court. Back when we used to have things like justice, back when we used to have rights. Well, there are strict rules about this. What I do with people at Veterans Today, which is now the largest news organization on this planet, pretty much everybody goes through intelligence training classes. They are taught to tell the difference. They are taught interrogation skills. They're taught how to understand psychological warfare, chaos theory, disinformation. Mr. Fetzer, how many hours do I have invested in you going through these things?
Oh, Gordon, well over 100, no doubt about it. Probably several.
But the point is to develop the quality of our collective work. Now, today, I spent today sending you intelligence documents. How horrible were some of them?
Pretty serious stuff, Gordon.
And they don't come from Internet people, do they?
No, they certainly don't.
Yeah. Now, simple for you guys out there, you know, and for you know, and it's time we did some smacking down here. You know, if you don't have resources, and there are reasons that we have the trust that we have, because we've played it narrow. And absolutely, it's very simple right now. It's like I'm turning into Bush. You're either with us or against us. I don't care if you're against us. You know, Jim and I do fine. We're as happy as if we were in our right minds. You know, we travel where we want to. We live well. We do what we want to. We have a huge amount of support. We've got good families. We've got lots and lots of friends. And we have our integrity. What's also happened over a series of years is the world I live within. I live within a community made of senior intelligence agencies, including top-level people from the FSB, KGB, ISI, Central Intelligence Agency, MI5, MI6, other agencies around the world. These guys have been friends for a long time. We all stick together because we think our governments are all corrupt. We all like each other. And you know what I'll add to that? Let me be quite honest. I have more than a couple of friends in the Mossad that I have great affection for, who I trust. And they're people of great charm and great, well, frankly, heart. You know, I have a lot of people, and this angers a lot of our people who see everything black and white. I have a lot of respect for an awful lot of Jewish people in Israel who don't do everything I want to, but do what they can, and many of them do much more than anyone guesses. And as far as blaming the Jews for everything that goes on, there's a reason I don't allow that at VT. And they, meaning the victimization people, hate that because VT is largely Jewish. A lot of Jews at VT. You know, it's as simple as that. And, matter of fact, we're totally multinational. Of the people I deal with, not that many of the people I deal with are white. You know, there ain't nothing right-wing or white supremacist about me. I am multicultural. I am highly progressive. I am very friendly toward the Jewish religion, Jewish people. I'm very Islam friendly. I have friends across Africa and elsewhere. Those people who are backers of white nationalism, like the Zondel family, I have tremendous respect for them as courageous people. And instead, they told him, who I think is a little crazy sometimes, but I have tremendous respect for his personal courage. People of courage and character. I don't care what your beliefs are. I can work with you if you have courage and character. And those of you who don't, at some point, we're going to deal with you. And the we, you can only guess who the we is. The we is more than just a random group of friends out of the Pentagon and sitting around Tel Aviv in a military headquarters in Iran or Pakistan or Moscow or London, or it's more than that. It's a little more than that. And I'm the only one allowed to talk for whatever reason because, well, I can do this because I'm just not so vulnerable. You figure out why. Now, do people deserve the truth? You know, not everybody out there, and this is, we're stepping into this area, not all of you out there have retained or developed the discernment, understanding, and emotional fortitude to be human beings. That's a problem. There are so many of us here that have very diverse beliefs that supposedly believe a lot of different things. You can sit us all in a room. Now, you sit us in a room, most of the time, at least, I'll be able to go over and throw a chair at you or something. But for the most part, when we sit in a room and look at each other, we come to an understanding. And I don't care if it's a room full of Jews and Arabs or whatever, and I do that all the time, by the way. And we always work together. There's no question. People of good faith, of courage and heart, always work together. And the problem I have within the U.S. is I have here, above all places, this is the country I grew up, and Jim Fetzer and I, well, you got to call it, we're all Marines here on this. And there's a disease that comes with this. I'm a fanatic pro-American at heart. And I am deeply ashamed of a huge number of Americans who I believe to be pathologically insane, to literally be sociopaths to the extent where I am periodically given alternative explanations that indicate that a lot of us just weren't supplied with the ability to understand and function as human beings. It's so easy. I look back at the post 9/11 period, and I won't say that I'm above being stupid. If anything, the only strength any of us are going to have is admitting mistakes we've made, admitting being fooled, admitting being human beings. Abilities, let's say, like termite sniffers don't have. That's a private joke there that Jim Fetzer will get at. But, after 9/11, I absolutely, planes don't crash into buildings and knock them down. It's just, it's unimaginable. But I still, I do continual flights. I'm on, if you want to shoot me down, by the way, get me on 442 from Detroit to Frankfurt. Lufthansa, I will be sitting in first class and on the front seat in the right, if you want to, so that's where I'm there continually, and then you'll find me in the B terminal lounge, VIP at Frankfurt Airport. You're usually asleep in one of the bedrooms, or sitting in the shower trying to get my back to work again, and then looking at the 40-year-old Scotch they've got sitting there, which I no longer drink, but certainly love to handle the bottles of. But yeah, easy to find. And I would sit there in Metro Airport, and that, the little lounge out in the terminal, and we would look around there for dangerous-looking Arabs that were going to get me. Now, with Fetzer, I'm 6'1", 240 pounds, and God only knows, I'm 65 years old, but I still can carry my motorcycle out of the garage when I have to. And as Kevin Barrett so often would bring up, that 100-pounder with a box cutter. And I get on these planes to Frankfurt, mind you. I'm a big kid, former football player. And I'm on these planes full of Germans. And I stand up in the plane, and everyone else gets around me, and I come up to their chin. There are people on these planes who could carry me under their arm like I was hand baggage. The idea that somebody can get on a plane, or 3 people, or 4 people, and not simply be pounded to death by the passengers is unbelievable. So many of us, there are 40 million of us here in the United States with military training. There are millions and millions of them. I'm a combat veteran. I look for the opportunity to get my overweight ballpoint pen out and just jam it through somebody's eye, just out of residual anger from having bought too many things on eBay. I mean, that's how all of us are. We all deal with anger continually. All of this, but we all bought in on this because we all have this desire, like the classic paranoid, to live in a TV world, to be Jason Bourne, to live in something with more texture, with real danger. So this week when I couldn't get on a plane because I'm recovering from a back injury, and Jim Dean went to Syria, and he's sitting in Homs being shelled today by Israelis, by the way, which, for anybody that's been so, and I've got Stetzer on here who's an artillery officer. He knows how useless it is. I am so jealous of Jim Dean being over there because I love to sit out in the open and safely watch artillery lay 5 miles away, or occasionally get shot at, because it's the only time I really know I'm alive. That's for any of us that are combat vets. And, yesterday I had a former head of CIA clandestine services call me. Gordon, you got a gig we can go on? I've been sitting around the house too long. This is someone over 70 and who had a stroke. And we need to get somewhere doing something. I just can't stay around the house. So many of us here that'll be pushing into our 70s, we want nothing more. Go ahead and kill me. What am I going to do? Die in an old people's home or rot from an Agent Orange cancer? Or like those 70,000 New Yorkers, wait for the radiation poisoning from 9/11 to get us. Now, we've all got to, Jim, we've got this generation that we came from, the Beatles, Vietnam generation that supposedly was going to change everything. And we're going into the darkness quietly. We're going into the darkness, leaving a nightmare world for our kids, despite the fact that you and I spend our entire days beating people to death. We work very hard. And if anything, I'm proud of. I'm proud of the number of people from the Department of Defense, the CIA, Defense Intelligence Agency, NSA, Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, the DEA, the FBI, many people from the FBI who have come forward to help us, from MI6, from the FSB, from the United Nations, so many other organizations who have stepped up, from the Mossad. Thank all of you guys who have stood up as part of us, who have put their pensions at risk, who don't care, who care more about their children and grandchildren than watching this planet turn into. And if you think they're just doing this to steal a few dollars or to make some money on oil, you're nuts. It's far, far more serious than that. And toward that end, I recommend you follow Preston James. Why would somebody do the kind of insanity that's being done? Push this world into crazed warfare while the standard of living in the United States is plunging. Why would millions of Americans worry about having a decent living wage? Why are they so worried about illegal aliens when, frankly, we've got 6 kids here and a pile of grandchildren, and the worry, like everyone else, is keep extra houses so that kids will have somewhere to live when they lose their jobs. I'm going to be visiting one of my other friends today. They've got kids and grandchildren, and the kids, well, it takes all of the money any of us make to help them make their house payments when they lose their jobs, or to cover their legal expenses for one thing or another. All of the things that have the predators that are running generation after generation of America into permanent poverty, while 0.1% is garnering what wealth we have, wealth they will never be able to spend. It's not about wealth. It's about power. It's about slavery. And slavery isn't the answer. It's what they're doing after. We haven't had the other shoe drop yet. There's another shoe to drop. They're just staging something here. Something very, very, very bad is coming. Why people are standing up now, and why it may go to something really serious where blood will flow. Now, I am not advocating that, but it is heading that way, because there is a consequence coming. People are gaining the wealth and power, the control over press, the control over governments, control over police forces, putting SWAT teams in every town, putting armored personnel carriers everywhere, because they are serving an agenda they have not yet been told of, one that is extremely dark, more dark than nearly any science fiction you've seen. At that point, I would stop talking again.
No, Gordon, you're on a roll and you're telling the truth, and Jim's going to be, I know that you want to stick around about an hour because you had stuff to do, but I want you to finish. And Jim's going to hang with me on the, and you can hang the full 2 hours if you want, Gordon. I want you to keep telling the truth.
There's no finish here. You know, and we're only presenting what is real for those who are capable of understanding it, and who may have. You only earn a right to know. Now, what I suggest that those of you who don't do this, go online, hook your stuff up with Yahoo or whatever, and get a Hate Gordon Duff website. Please do that. I want you to stand up and be counted, because it has to be a list of assholes in the world somewhere. And make yourself counted as an asshole. Google will kick you right up to the top here. The Israelis will start sending you checks. And eventually, when you wake up some morning in a cage, like something out of Hansel and Gretel, and I'm telling you that's exactly where it's going. I won't be there with you, I can assure you, but you will have been warned. And it's exactly that serious. Why do you think they do it? What do you have that they'd want? What do you really have? Do you think people want your house, your savings, that car out in your driveway? They need to drag your kids out to Afghanistan to have some farmers blow them up? You think they want to tax your savings or overcharge you on gas, or to have evil Negroes take over your government like they have for the last 6 years and pollute your precious bodily fluids? That's the height of narcissism, if you think people care about you or what you have. Look at what our real asset is. You're standing on a real asset. It's here. It's this oxygen. It's that core gold and iron and nickel. It's this planet. It's all that water. You know, that's all the value we have. All the rest of this stuff is like derivatives. Hot air. It's all hot air. Why do you think people think nothing of just pumping the oceans full of air full of radiation, and our food full of mercury, and feeding you, heaven forbid, GMO corn, which I think probably in the end will be found to be unacceptable to feed to rats. You know, you have a long history of watching things go on here, and no one ever asks why. Why would people of such basic evil and malice, of lack of character, and we can start John McCain, Lindsey Graham, Like Rand Paul. Oh, not him. Top of the list. Rand Paul. Top, absolute top. Ted Cruz. Boehner Boehner. The entire Bush administration. And of world leaders. Not everybody's who they seem. You know, I go after Netanyahu a lot, and he's not a heartless individual. He's trying to be last man standing. So Sheldon Adelson, same thing. The Koch brothers, oh yeah, evil beyond human measure. Others are not. Other people are here, and the more that some know nothing at all. You're being told more than you should ever know, and for those who will never understand this, it's best to walk away right now while you can. Don't listen to this. It's not going to help you. Many people just walk away. Others, we have so many people in the U.S. who believe they have sold the people of the world down the toilet, and that they're going to walk away free. And I'm not even saying walk away free from what, but you don't see it coming. You watch the news, you watch what's been going on since 2000 and before, and you don't see it coming. You think this is all there is, this petty squabbling over some oil and gas and a pipeline and Al-Qaeda and running drugs into Russia, and you think that's what this is about? That we would engage in all of this insanity, and of course that's all predicated on your belief that all scientific knowledge stops the Middle Ages, because that's all that you're told about what exists. If you believe what science tells you is real, what you think is real physics, even physics as you are told, and if I have to, I'll prove it. I am capable of proving it. We have money invested in companies that are based on technologies using what I'll describe as non-ordinary physics. The first word I'll mention is Tesla, and it goes further. It goes much further. If you even believe physics and gravity exist as you think, that time exists as you think, that time and space exist as you think, that people exist as you think. You know, you have your religions as an alternative, and this is one thing that Stu wanted to get into. You have your religions as an alternative explanation for the fact that you live in a world where the physics, we are told, are not functional. Relativity is not functional. As soon as we broke the speed of light at CERN, relativity, general relativity, died. Totally died. Tesla killed all ideas of space as we know it. We mentioned things like we have multiple universes. And I don't even have to go toward UFOs. You don't even want to begin to see where that is. We are so not alone. We're so not alone, you're lucky you've got somewhere to stand. It's way beyond any of that. And so you can piece all of it together with ghost stories, with conspiracy theories, with ancient aliens. And all of this, by the way, has more than a slight amount of fact to it. Some of it way much more. But you can piece it all together. You can take phony reality, and then you can take the non-ordinary, well, I want to believe in this stuff because it explains all the things that seem right, and try to patch together things that will never fit. Or you can realize that reality, existence, has nothing to do with what you're told it is. It's not what you believe it is. Nobody believes any of what we're told to believe because it doesn't feel right. It doesn't seem right, and it doesn't work. None of it works. The first time you had deja vu in your life, for those of you who have such things, you knew that everything you were told was wrong. There cannot be deja vu without an absence of linear time. Jim, should I stop? Is Jim still on?
No, Gordon, don't stop. Jim, you still with us?
Oh, absolutely. I've been fascinated by this whole thing. It's been stunning.
This is. Don't stop, Gordon. We'll have a break here in a few minutes, but we want you to continue.
Jim, I'm walking us to the edge of what, and what I say is I am only a representative of others. I am not in charge of anything, but I do speak for others, and I won't even say others of authority, but whatever authority is. I don't care. We're all holding on with our fingernails here anyway. As much as anybody here hopes for. It's like the Kenny Rogers song together. You have to die in your sleep. That's what all of you are out there doing.
Hold the thought. We've got to go to break. This is the Veterans Today News Reports. I'm your host, Stu Webb. My guest is Gordon Duff, U.S. Intelligence Officer, Editor, Veterans Today, and Professor James Fetzer. Hold on, folks. We'll be right back. And we're back, folks, and this is the Veterans Today News Reports. I'm your host, Stu Webb. It's June the 4th, 2014, and my two special guests, Gordon Duff, Editor, Veterans Today, and Professor James Fetzer, also an editor on Veterans Today. And I'm just going to turn the mic back over to you, Gordon. Uncle Gordy, we can call you now.
Yeah, I've got more than a couple of nicknames. Things to be warned about here. I'm putting things out there that are, this probably should be saved and discerned by those of you that can. And then we want to look at those who will analyze this and look to find things wrong with it. It's very careful that we find those that attack us, because we have to learn to recognize the threats around us. And toward that end, we probably have to institute consequences. I'm not a militia guy, although heaven forbid I have more guns than some armies do. I build and collect. I collect military weapons. I don't even shoot anymore. I can't see. But it's not going to be about that. There is no one coming to your door to get your guns. There's no anybody to shoot at. There are those of us to save. Now, the warning, I get warnings for things. I've been placed in a position, and heaven only, I've always suspected stuff, and we all should suspect things. When people give you information, when people hand you, there is no free lunch. Veterans Today has ended up over a period of years to have, and it's not a perfect organization. I don't tell people what to write. I don't agree with everyone. It's a free marketplace of ideas. But it is a collection. Right now, it has the top writing team on this planet. It has the brightest people in the world. No one will argue with that. We're there. We have whatever freedom there is there. There is no other place to go. And it's because it's the last man standing, and it's the last man standing because, I'll tell you, I have made sacrifices to see to it that people at Veterans Today are protected. I cut deals to make sure that people are protected. And behind Veterans Today, we have defense corporations, we've got intelligence groups, we have some very, very dangerous people, very angry people, people of divergent beliefs, some, fanatically pro-Israeli, so certainly people within the U.S. nuclear commands, the intelligence agency, the special operations groups we are hand in hand with, major defense contracting firms. But behind this, there's this basic feeling. We have a little group of hitters in there, senior intelligence people, which I'm one of those people. And how do you get to be very senior? It's a real easy one. If you don't die, you get to be real senior. It's kind of how it works. And we run a little charismatic club there. What we try to have is heart. We try to see ourselves. We try to retain our humor. We try to retain focus what matters, take care of our families, our friends, care about the United States as we can, but realize that the world is not about the United States. It's about all of us. When I look at my family, I live in a very collective life. Communicate with people around the world. I've spent years traveling the world, making friends. I keep all of them, and we all work together all of the time. And this is why, and as we get older, we're beginning to lose people. But it's what we have. We are creating a community. Veterans Today is a community, and it includes readers, and it includes listeners out here. And I have listeners. I have people commenting at Veterans Today that I tell you are brighter than any of us, that know more than any of us. We have people coming forward and signing up because they see people of like heart. All we have is who any of us are. I had Chris Bolin. I guess Petra can explain who Chris Bolin is. But excuse me being an Israeli disinfo officer. Oh, my God. The insanity of this. And I've always loved Chris. You know, a good-looking guy, great investigative reporter. But people are vulnerable. I don't know, and I can't label everybody, you're an agent of this or whatever. Because I watch so many around us, so many people around Jim and I over the years. Now, Jim, you've been involved in 9/11 Truth forever. How many of the people you've dealt with have just turned out to have some kind of rotten core at the middle of them here? And you like everybody, pretty much.
Gordon, I wish I could say we're a relatively modest percent, but I'm afraid it's around 75.
I might even go higher than this. It's one of the things. We were sitting around the house here with Carol, and I was just, we're in my office is the servants' quarters in my house. I've been relegated there off the kitchen and laundry room. And Jim and I, a few months ago, we're sitting there in the house, and I'm just going through this criteria for evaluating people. Why do people do the things we do? Now, I've got Stu on here, whose daughter married into a massive organized crime family, and Stu, rather than being a paranoid nut, people really try to kill Stu. And Stu will just beat his head against a wall forever. Now, and Stu's, as far as, I think how he handles himself on things, Stu, I have to work with Stu sometimes. Mike and Harris and I were talking yesterday about putting a lid on Stu when Stu was going after Alex Jones, And then, of course, today, Alex Jones exposes himself in the most horrific way. And I call up Mike Harris and say, yesterday we were talking about putting a lid on Stu. Now he's going to have to put a lid on us. The point being, when you're no longer able to look at yourself and correct what you do, you have stopped, you died.
I've learned that from you, Gordon. I've learned that. I've learned a lot. I'm calling you Uncle Gordon now.
I got to say, Gordon, this story on InfoWars, which was about Snowden, who was saying that if only the FBI and the CIA had better communications, they would have known the terrorists were going to attack 9/11 and it could have been avoided. That very much disturbed me. I mean, not only about Alex Jones.
Oh, my God, yeah. Oh, why didn't somebody tell the FBI that they were part of the plot? Because we know they were.
Yes.
If only the FBI and CIA had admitted that they were plotting with the Mossad to blow up the World Trade Center and collapse the world economic system in conjunction with the Bush family and the secret shadow government, then they would have done something about it. Why didn't he just say that? These people are pathologically insane. And they send this stuff out there. I mean, who do they expect is going to be reading this? Are they thinking that all of the people that, the mentally disturbed groups that had been Fox News and Hannity adherents somehow are going to rush over and buy in a bunch of phony cancer cures and poisonous medicines and send their money in so that the Mossad can have a self-financing psychological warfare operation against the United States. Let's just call it what it is. But toward that end, I think that Alex Jones is doing a service because it's like he's a giant vacuum cleaner sucking all of the rotted scum out of the United States, putting them in one area where we can identify them, and maybe we could just get bulldozers. The Israelis are so good at bulldozing people, and Caterpillar supplies them with them. We could bulldoze them all into the Pacific Ocean. It's how many Alex Jones listeners belong at the bottom of the Pacific Ocean? Pretty much all of them.
It's very upsetting, Gordon. In fact, I have felt that Edward Snowden did so much good by exposing the massive NSA surveillance, but these remarks about 9/11 were utterly naive and clearly misleading. I mean, do you think he doesn't know better?
Jim, now this is where, if you remember, and just so you know this, I'm a really bad-tempered person. And both Stu and Harris and everybody else will tell you that I will periodically just call people up when I'm having a caffeine moment and scream at people. It's post-traumatic stress. It's an excuse. I come from a German family. I grew up bad, But what I say to Jim about this, the NSA gets between $18 and $30 billion a year. Congress, and the NDAA and FISA and other laws, plus protocols we are not told, has long authorized them and given them the capability of gathering all information in the world. Toward that end, they have built massive intelligence fusion centers, by the way, which intelligence fusion centers is one of the things that I do for a living. I'm in the surveillance business. I do this. I spy on people. It's my job, too. I actually, however, discuss the ethics of information when we give this out and how to discern what a threat is and what isn't. The NSA apparently doesn't. But yes, the nature of survival in this world requires ISR, we call it. I run one of the largest private ISR organization in the world. I run my own version of the NSA. We run 4 spy satellites. We have intelligence. I control the patents. The patents the NSA uses for processing their intelligence surveillance come from one of our subsidiaries. We're the ones that created the algorithms that they use for processing intelligence. I know everything about what they do. I'm aware of it. The point is, so did everyone. The fact that the NSA, and I can assure you this, they are incapable of taking the massive information they have and processing it to actionable intelligence, meaning they are no threat. They don't know how to do it. The more information they collect, the less they can do with it. They can do nothing with it, and there is no history of them doing anything with it. That's the point. Spying on world leaders, absolutely. That's their job. I pray for them to do that. I want them to listen to everything. The problem being is if you had vital information to the security of the United States, who the hell would you give it to? Because nobody in Washington cares. There's nobody there. Who cares what they do? Because nobody was going to do anything with it. You could take a confirmed criminal case against the master criminal and give it to the FBI, and they'll walk away from it. They do it all day, every day. Why do you think we had the crashes in 2000, 2007, 2008? How do you think the Federal Reserve Bank of New York under Timothy Geithner was able to steal $3.5 trillion U.S. dollars? How do you think Wall Street was able to create $2.55 quadrillion? And we're saying enough money to buy the sun and sell it off as solar heat. I think we actually created enough money to buy 1 or 2 universes. There is no movable wealth that represents this. We're living in a country now where Al-Qaeda is considered part of NATO. I'm surprised that Al-Qaeda doesn't have a seat in NATO the way the PLO has a seat at the United Nations. Al-Qaeda is a NATO organization now, officially. I'm thinking of bringing Osama bin Laden back alive.
Well, he went
He
dead
may
and came back alive.
I hear a rumor.
Mainstream media.
I hear a rumor that his mother was smuggled to Texas, and he was born there while staying with the Bush family, and that means that Bin Laden can run for president, doesn't it? I mean, that's the kind of stuff we get. I believe Alex Jones told me that. This is oh, are we getting out of hand yet? Are we having fun yet?
No, Gordon, you're telling the truth. We can't leave out the others. I mean, we got Christopher Bowen, and we have Alex Jones and Snowden.
Bowen, and for those of you who don't understand the Bowen thing, Bowen, when I released documents received from Russian intelligence on the nuclear weapons used on 9/11, specifics about where they came from and how they were built, including documents covering the physics of it, and the names of people involved, some of whom are still around and who have come forward, which I have left out for that reason. You know, when I did this, Bowen decided to try a smear campaign against me, and then toward that end, Veterans Today's on-staff junkyard dog, and who is that, pray tell? Dr. James Fetzer. Absolutely, oh my heavens, just crushed the living life out of Chris Bowen. Now, you know, I haven't stayed in contact with Bowen. I've got autographed copies of his books. He's been a courteous sort of guy. Nanothermite, there's this idea that some kind of magic dust, that a non-existent factory created 143,000 tons of a non-existent substance, which was created in microscopic quantities on the International Space Station, and I have the plans for the mechanism to do this. Okay, because they came to me to sell this to me as a propellant. All I had to do was find a zero-G lab. Zero-G, that means no gravity, one built in outer space. Well, if anybody's got proof that somebody built 143,000 tons of nanothermite in outer space, 6-micron aluminum and nitrogen molecules, transported those to Earth somehow magically, bilocated them, loaded them in the back of 2 trucks driven by Israeli art students, and how do you get 70,000 tons of nanothermite in the back of a Ford Econoline van? And I'll tell you this, stacked very carefully. and then they carry it. And how many floors of the World Trade Center with this entirely filled? I mean, entirely, just stacked entirely. You know, what they need to tell him it was campaign leaflets for Bloomberg or whatever. Well, how many did you print? 200 trillion, of course. One for everybody in New York. No, there aren't that many people in New York. Oops, we made a mistake. The insanity of these people. So occasionally, we take we have little tiny targets. And Jones, see what Jones has done. Jones has done really good work in me. I mean, anybody that's on TV or radio any length of time, I mean, the stories of the hundreds of thousands of Chinese sneaking around the U.S. or the Russian armies, walking up the Potomac every day, like nobody remembers that he pulls all this stuff out of, where. I mean, this is kind of fine, and people are, and it's a free market of ideas, and you know what, if we're going to defend free speech, heaven forbid, defend his right to talk to the crazy people and make as much money as he can. Everybody else does it, and I really believe in that. And then at times, I mean, when General Hamid Gul needed somewhere to talk about 9/11, Alex Jones let him do it. And I give him credit for that. When I look at this Bundy thing going on, oh my heavens, the stuff that, there is insanity. What we're seeing here recently, and this is just on the micro end, because we have last hour where we covered some broad things which need to be separated out and dealt with, because I put things out there of lasting value. And by saying they're lasting value, they did not originate with me. I do not create things of lasting value. I'm one of you guys. Not any different at all. I'm one of the kids here. You know, make mistakes, screw up stuff. That's just me. I'm uniquely imperfect. Not as bad as Stu and Fetzer by any means, but uniquely imperfect. But collectively, there are enough of us that we're a power. Just, the question was, well, how are we going to fix it? We're going to go to the election. We're going to elect another Tea Party. I mean, oh my God, how's that worked out for you? We've got warmongering, nutso fanatics. Get rid of all of them. Well, what can we do within the government? I looked at what happened in the VA, the Department of Veterans Affairs. I can go off on a little minor tangent here, probably. I was in Africa. And is the case when people who do when I travel, I usually travel with armored car and whatever. It's not a big deal. It's very common. Plus, it employs people in third world countries. So when you're I'm like a D-level celeb. But when I go somewhere, I get picked up off a plane. I don't go through customs. I get picked up in an armored vehicle. I have lots and lots of guards, and it's done simply because it employs lots of people. And that's why we do that. We get the cars, we get the guards. I have 5 or 6 cars. I have police in front and back, because it pays people and it's goodwill. We don't do it because nobody cares you're running through traffic lights in Abuja, But it's just the way things are done. I ended up with an injury. I'm an old ex-football player. I get beaten up. Minor VA story here. In early May, I went to the VA. I had a minor injury. I know I had a number of trips to take. I'm really not sitting down properly. I'm actually laying down right now talking to you with a fair amount of anti-inflammatories and steroids running right now. But we discovered just magically a few weeks ago that the VA was utterly corrupt. Now, for a decade, veterans today has not only been proving it, but we've taken the VA to federal court, proven that they've been involved with organized crime and the theft of land. We have repeatedly taken criminal cases to the FBI showing that specific offices of the Department of Veterans Affairs have been involved in massive benefits fraud, have been involved in defrauding hospitals on payments to organized crime for non-existent goods and services they've purchased. We have found evidence that more than 200 veterans have been arrested and incarcerated for whistleblowing on the VA and have been arrested at the behest of the VA Inspector General, which is not a law enforcement organization, nor does it have the ability or right by its mandate to Congress to prosecute veterans or work to have veterans silenced or prosecuted. We have found that the VA runs a private police force that intimidates and follows veterans, that has worked with criminal elements to have veterans assaulted, that follows people around, that does wiretapping, that has borrowed surveillance vans from the NSA, the VA police have. We have filmed them doing this. That would be Robert Rosebach's work. We have documented this significantly. We have filed charges against them. We have beaten them in court with the ACLU. We have taken them in front of federal prosecutors and had their arrests of our 80-plus-year-old demonstrators overturned. My own case here, I have a minor back injury, and I will deal with this. And after all of the scandals with the VA and figuring that I run one of the news services for the Department of Veterans Affairs and a $2.85 million member Veterans Association, mind you. I was told today that I had a 60-day wait to start physical therapy on what should be considered a debilitating injury. I remember getting making the call here to schedule this, and I was told it would take a day or two. And I did an evaluation appointment sometime at the end of July, and this started in April, mind you. And I just think here, and this isn't serious compared to what so many young people are going through. I'm a 100% disabled vet with Class 1, which is the top of the feeding order at the VA. I watched my own paperwork spend 12 years passing through the VA. I have seen my VA files destroyed 3 times. I have evidence of documents that I've submitted to the VA destroyed a half dozen times. The VA owes me many, many thousands of dollars in back benefits and dependence benefits based on documents I can prove they've destroyed, and they don't respond, including to congressional inquiries. We've watched this go on for a long time, and in the last couple of weeks, the secretary resigned, and it's all better. Nothing's better. He didn't do it. He was just a Japanese-American unable and unwilling to face corruption, unwilling to confront people because from a sociological perspective, he didn't have the right background for dealing with corruption and correcting something wrong. I'm deeply ashamed of General Shinseki and the fact that he ignored these problems and that President Obama ignored them that he knew about for so many years. Now, and I am the privileged few here, if I can't be taken care of, what about, and this is Russia Today says that 100,000 young American veterans have killed themselves, and they lie about these things. It was 100, it was 300, it was 19,000. It's over 100,000. Go to the Bureau of the Census. In 2010, 116,000 Americans committed suicide. 75,000 of the 116,000 indicated that they had military service, whether or not. Of those, 34,000 were younger veterans. Minimally, we have lost so many younger veterans that why are we losing them? Why do our kids, and some of you may be these kids, why do they no longer want to live here? They don't see it worthwhile. Is it that they've watched deployment after deployment, their families go away? Are they living in a country that, if they didn't believe that the Obama administration, or certainly the satanic Bush administration, well, all you have is people, and we may be part of this problem, telling people that everything is wrong and everything is hopeless. One of the things I do, I've got kitty cats, I've got grandchildren, I've got kids, I watch television, I've certainly got, a job and whatever. I'm lucky to have those things. But when it comes around 7 o'clock at night here, I drag a motorcycle out. I'm a bikist, confirmed. I kick it to life and crack it into gear and pull out on, a 2-lane and crack the throttle. And, and it's so many of us do. Listen to that sound and, and watch the open road. And we have so much out there. And what people want to do is they want to trap us in an imaginary world. An imaginary world, and we talked about it, is their religion, not my religion, which is just an alternative explanation for imaginary physics, for a worldview, for a history that never existed. None of this. It's all been pulled out of where. All of it has. And heaven forbid, I love Jewish holidays. I always do holidays with friends, and I like so much of these things. I love Christmas. I I almost like the Easter Bunny. I like the idea of Jesus and his teaching. I like the Greco-Roman idea of the mythic resurrection of imaginary Christ, and the idea of the virgin birth and the impregnation of the Virgin Mary by a swan or whatever it is. I forgot how that works anyway, but I like all of this. I love so much of what is good about Islam, even of all of these religions. I find so much, Buddhism even more. I find so much in this that explains and offers a depth to all of us. And then I've watched all of my life while it's all been turned to disease. And it's, one of the things I look at is that this is what I hear in the South in particular. You got two kinds of people. You got church people, and I got a horse ranch down in Kentucky. And a county here, in this case, the county, absolutely no Jewish people in the county except my mother, who's dead. No black people at all. And you have a lot of military retirees. We're not far from Fort Richmond, the poison gas, but outside of Lexington, there are church people who are good people, and then there are the meth dealers, which make up the entire rest of the county, all on SSI, meth, breaking into people's homes, doing God only knows what. And you're one or the other. There is no accountability for people's lives. There's no one that there is no idea that everything you do has a consequence. Now, I can understand somebody wanting to drive 80 miles an hour around the curve and not expecting the cool school bus to be there. We all have judgment issues. We're all dealing with bad brain chemistry or whatever. But we go through life totally, let's say prejudice here. I hate Jews, I hate Negroes, I hate white people. We defend this, we defend that. Well, as humans, it is the job of all humans, and this is in our DNA, to take care of children and not discern. When I'm with a child, whether it's an African child or any other child, all children are children to me. That's how it's supposed to be with all of us. If you find a child somewhere and it is abandoned and hurt, you are there. If you are not a murderous, sociopathic bastard, you are there to take care of that child. That is what's supposed to happen. Is like you should take care of a kitten or try to put a bird back in a nest. That is what defines our human being. And if you're not one of those people, please walk in front of a bus. But that defines who we are. How do we reach a point someday where we decide we hate those people because we don't like their religion, their ethnicity, the color of their eyes, what their hair is like, that they... how do we decide that's different? When do human beings stop being human beings? When do we accept them as some group that we can gain some positive feeling about ourselves through hating? I go back to fourth grade. I remember Mrs. Thomas's fourth grade at Balney Smith Elementary. On the side wall in the room were little cars, and it's the head car was the guy or girl that got the highest scores on a long division. Spent an entire year learning to do long division, and I will assure you, after leaving fourth grade, I never did long division again, and still don't. And I was always in the front there because I was really good at doing long division and anything else that would get me approval, because I was, a abused, beaten, deaf German American child. And what was built into my life, what was programmed into my life, was the idea that I could only succeed, only feel good about myself if others were made to fail. And what I look at, and this is where the internet is such a disease, the internet exacerbates that problem. We all look for dirty laundry. You remember the Eagles song. We live on dirty laundry. We can only feel good about ourselves based on the relative failure of others. Well, I had my house repossessed, but Thank God my neighbor had his house repossessed, his dog was run over, and now his kid's got leukemia. Thank God his kid's got leukemia, because me just having this disaster, I'm so much better off than he is. If you don't recognize that as part of the American psyche, you have not been paying attention, and you're not being honest to yourself. If you don't recognize that as the key to how you are being handled, that's the hook that's pulling you, if you're a religious person, that will pull you to burn in hell. If you don't recognize that, if you don't see that as the basis for guilt-driven Christianity, which I find a horrific influence, and certain versions of other religions, if not all of them, almost all of them, if you don't recognize that human flaw, that huge human flaw, where we are vulnerable to seeing gains in ourselves through the failure and pain and suffering of others. And of course, that would be seen the sin of pride. That's where it comes from. We're right down the 7 deadly sins. And within, not everybody who's been involved in religion and philosophy, religion is philosophy, is stupid. The answers are very much there. They have been there, and people that find them there. So I tend to abide this, although I don't find it useful for myself. I'd like to think these things are self-evident to all of it. We go back to this thing here with veterans today, what we are. It's, from a group of flawed individuals, and heaven forbid there are things. Read veteranstoday.com, or we all write for Press TV and RT and Neo and other publications, and then we are stolen from and reprinted everywhere, which is fine. And you will find a marketplace of ideas, and you will find things that no one will print elsewhere. And we do not have a doctrine. I do not tell people, if you don't say this. Yeah, Jim, have I ever told you anything to write?
Ever told me that I'm right?
No, I've ever told you what to write or what you can and can't.
Oh, no, absolutely not, Gordon. You never have, which I've greatly appreciated.
And since you've watched me change what I believe how many times over the years, would it be an indication I were totally insane if I had done that?
Yes, we all, if we are rational, will adjust our beliefs on the basis of newly available evidence or new alternative hypotheses. But there are those out there who are adamantly committed to whatever they first believed, Gordon. It's like imprinting for a duckling, and they'll never change.
Or, as we're beginning to suspect, since we know of their availability of information, and we know that their original beliefs were based on them walking away from standardized information, that the non-standard information, I'm using this term perhaps wrongly, but you can correct that they may be influenced to support a specific hypothesis for reasons that could be. This is our suspicion, that we have a tremendous number of people around us who have, we can call it gatekeeping or whatever. And I guess the point I'm going to is that Jim loves torturing them, and it's kick to the curb time. As far as I'm convinced, they have nothing to offer anymore. We're trying to find everyone out there capable and deserving of processing oxygen, everyone with a mental capability that will allow them to see reality when confronted by it. Whereas Jeff Gates, who, and we wonder where he's gone, mind you, but Jeff Gates would talk about facts versus belief. Whenever faith or belief tends to guide what you do, you're either insane or you're being paid. And when we look at the people around us, so many of them, Jim, how many of these people that you've had to deal with don't have any visible signs of economic support?
Oh, that's an interesting question, Gordon. I don't know, maybe 20%? When there's a significant divergence between what the objective logical relationships between evidence and hypotheses indicate is the objective measure of support and the subjective degree of belief that diverges, it requires an explanation, and that can be either they're unfamiliar with the evidence or the hypotheses, or they're violating the rules of reasoning, and then that requires an explanation in turn, because it means they're either cognitively impaired or have a separate agenda.
You just watched the college professor just hit me on the head with something, by the way, for anybody out there. Now, I'm talking about economic support. How many of the would-be activists around us have no visible means of financial sustenance? Who are doing what they're doing, but you know that nobody's delivering $10,000 a month in checks to their house.
Well, that's most of us, Gordon. Kevin Barrett, me, Don Fox, a host of others.
Well, let's get into this. You've got you're on Social Security.
Yep.
Without getting into it too far here, you have a university pension of some kind.
Well, I had my retirement investments from TIAA-CREF, which I converted into an investment account. Yeah.
And then you have a wife with income.
Well, she spent most of her adult life as a housewife rather than as a working person, so her benefits are largely, proportional and dependent on mine.
But you know pretty much where the money comes from to pay the bills every month, and you have a lifetime working history.
Yes.
And we have around us, however, people who are prominent activists who have, very few of them have a visible lifetime working history of any kind.
Yes, I had 35 years as a university faculty member and then 4 more as a Marine Corps officer.
Yeah. And you've been to my house, okay?
Yes.
You can tell that I must have probably worked at some time or done something.
I like it, Gordon. It's a nice place.
Yeah, we got shit, and yeah.
And I like your cats.
Yeah, the cats are fun, and I'm still scruffing out there for work. Pensions, Social Security, certainly, investments, but all of this, I worked in investment banking. I worked in investment banking, made huge amounts of money. Lost pretty good chunks of it. I've actually, 2007, 2008, I lost millions of dollars. But not that many millions, But yeah, I did. And I'm still working. My wife's a university professor. And still working. I still work all this. And so many of us do. And we do it for kids, and you don't know if it helps or not. Can you give kids money? Can you not? We don't know about this. But what I'm saying is that we have people around us that are representing themselves as activists, and we don't show signs of them ever having had a job. They don't have any pensions. We don't know who pays their rent or how they get on an airplane or how they live. And they write books, but we know no one buys their books. We don't know I don't know where they get the money to buy a cup of coffee, and they've been around for years and years. They live here, they live there, they go here, they go there. And we don't know where they come from. We don't know who they are. And moreover, this is when they went with Jim years ago. I know what Jim does, because Jim just loves torturing people. It's just his life, You put somebody in, and he allows them, somebody's wearing a high hat. Jim Fetzer will knock it off. If somebody's a hypocrite, Jim Fetzer will hunt them down to the ends of the earth and torture them. It's his life. He loves doing it. And then God only knows I'm an obsessive compulsive, I'm accused of being a messianic type and warned by whatever powers that be there is that to watch my Messiah syndrome, because I have a tendency to have people want to follow me. And it's probably not a good idea. And for those of you out there, I'm going to tell you, take them at their word. Don't follow me, because you're likely to end up over the cliff here, you know. But yeah, and as far as working within the intelligence community, special operations, I'm the head kid of an awful lot of people, simply because, well, Gordon's going to go to and do that. Well, he's a crazy son of a bitch. Let's go with him. He's always fun, and that is how it works. It's because that's who we are. Because I'm a maniac, and yeah, you know, and that's fine. But they know better, and they've got stuff to lose. You've all got stuff to lose out there. The point being is that we're holding on to our scraps of lives with our fingernails, dying as slaves. We're living lives we need to be ashamed of. We're allowing ourselves to be buffaloed, to be pushed around by the absolute scum of the earth. When you open those emails telling you the things that you should be angry about, the gun seizures and the secret Soviet armies that are filling up Texas, the 200,000 of them that Alex Jones has put there. When you get those things, you might as well be living in the bottom of a cat box. You want to just sit in the bottom of a toilet or go live in a sewer. It's the kind of respect that you're showing for yourself. We can stand up. All you can do is and call this senseless, but die with a little bit of honor under some circumstances. It doesn't matter how you live, what you have. If you have no honor whatsoever, and so many people absolutely don't, and if you'll trade that little bit of honor for the ability to find something absolutely not just false, but inhuman and stupid to believe in, demeaning. If some of you can get this back, and one of the things I understand about this is because I see this tendency in myself. I see it there. I see myself programmed to do that, and I have to wake up every morning and bang myself in the head to stop. I've had to build a set of, we'll say, very rigid criteria where I stop when I do things and ask, why am I doing this? You know, I can remember, let's go back to Vietnam in the 1960s. You know, I'm carrying they gave us these M16 E1 open flash suppressor rifles. And at any given time, you are somewhere with people around you, someone is shooting at you, and you could point the rifle at someone and pull the trigger, which could shoot a kid or some farmer somewhere or anything. Bullets can go anywhere. But you're told, well, you should do as much shooting as possible because that's combat. And no, what you do is you think, I've got a weapon in my hand, and there are consequences. These little 55 grain pieces of metal come out of there at 3,600 feet per second, and they will destroy the lives of human beings if I hit them carelessly. And if I'm going to fire a weapon, there better be some reason to do this that I can live with for the rest of my life morally. Why did you shoot that? I've shot people. Why did you shoot that person? Because I didn't have any choice. Now, I can say that I sleep fine because of that. People that didn't make that decision kill themselves. And I mean, they all do. They absolutely all do. Because they were told, it's okay, go ahead and it's collateral damage. No, it's not. How many children can you murder? You will see them every single day. But this type of consequence you have when you vote. If you voted for Bush, you blew up the World Trade Center. If you sat quietly while this is going on, if you believe in, decided its elegance and how nanothermite was sold to us. Nanothermite was a package deal. We got to blame Bush and blame the neocons or the Israelis, depending on who you're with, and nanothermite came with it. So we got to hate the bad people. The Jews did it. The evil Bush family did it. And all you had to do was buy the crap of nanothermite. And then, of course, because you bought the crap of nanothermite, none of the guilty would ever pay because you had backed yourself into a corner that forever would be built on wild postulation upon a hypothesis that would never be supportable by any sort of reality. So they sold you down the river by offering you, we call it a candy bar and turd sandwich. And that's very much what this is. And Chris Boland, if he were passing this around years before, let's say he failed to think years before, but when I see it today, we've had time to move past that. When you fail to move past, when you know something you're doing is absolutely false, then I have a hard question. Mr. Fesser.
Yes. Yes, Gordon.
I just thought it's time to have me stop talking. I'm going to run out of caffeine after a while.
No, I mean,
Stu
and I are just enjoying this immensely, Gordon. I got to tell you.
Yeah, Gordon. I mean, if caffeine does this to you, I'm gonna get a needle and hook you up for about 5 hours.
The needle I had was stuck where I sit down and filled with Depo-Medrol, by the way, and it's anabolic steroids.
Gordon, this has been an education for many of these listeners, many listeners. This is like should be a history lesson.
You and I
I'm
did
ready to
this
start
for
the campaign. Gordon Duff for president.
Yeah, right. I will absolutely tell you that the first thing I would do as president. The first thing is 5 members of the Supreme Court would be in belly chains. The next one, I can absolutely assure you that I would have lists made up. I would go into the NSA, Mr. Snowden's NSA. I would absolutely wiretap everyone in Washington, and I would send teams of highly trained American veterans, special operations people. I'd have Marines and Special Forces, Navy SEALs only, and we would arrest in Washington within 24 hours. 30,000 people would be put in prison camps. And we would set up military tribunals. They would be tried for treason. They would be tried for insurrection against the United States. 5 members of the Supreme Court would sit with them. Leaders of Congress. Nearly half of the lobbyists. And then the same thing would happen in New York. Toward that end, we would break off financial relationships. We would pull out of the Federal Reserve within 15 minutes. The United States would be out of the Federal Reserve. In 15 minutes, we would be gone.
Well, Gordon, we're going to have the grassroots effort of Gordon Duff for President of the United States. We're going to get into write-in ballots. We're going to make this happen because what you just said, when you got president,
I didn't do anything
for one thing.
I didn't do anything to deserve this.
Of rounding them up, can I put the guillotine on the back of a semi-truck and the shackles inside semi-trucks as we round them up?
And I would go through every prison in the United States, and we would take over the operation of every prison. We would take over the operation of every court. I would start getting lie detector tests to every police officer in the United States. Every prosecutor. We would recreate the legal system, putting the power in the hands of the people of the United States. We would isolate the American economic system with tariffs. We would move manufacturing back to the United States. I would pay Lee Wanta his $27 trillion. We would rebuild this country. We would employ everyone in it. And we would take over as the real leader of the very real world, along with every nation and every person of goodwill out there. And they are there, and I know so very many of them. I deal with so many of them. One of the things I do have is I do have that access. And for whatever reason, could it be because we're entertaining or whatever? I have the guts to do all this. Absolutely. Not only have the guts to do it, I have the people behind me who'll do it. And there are no shortage of people in the United States who will do this. if you want to talk about getting real democracy back in the United States, oh, it can be done. Very real democracy. And but the gravy train ride, living off the blood of the American people, will end. Absolutely end. And it's going on around the world. It's not just us. People of goodwill. It isn't just Americans. The people that we would love as good Americans live around this world. They are of every religion and every color. They're in India. They're in Pakistan. They're in China. They're in Russia. They're in Poland. You know, we're looking at Ukraine, how bad the Ukrainian people, you either love what the Ukrainian people in the West are doing against the East, or the East against the West, or the Poles, or whatever. I've spent lots of time in all of those places. I love the Polish people. I love the German people. I love living in France.
We're running out of time
I like
here.
Portugal.
Gordon, we're running out of time. Gordon Duff for president, folks. You'll be seeing it on my website.
No. Don't let him just... Somebody shut him up.
Now,
hey,
I got to give thanks to John Stokes.
The first guy we're going to get
say hi to you, Gordon. And John Stokes, the Eds. This is a Microsoft
the Micro Effect
Radio Network. After hearing this, you got me stunned here. That what you've said here, Mr. President, Gordon Duff, you got my vote. What do you think, Professor?
Oh, they actually polled me in the last election. I came out ahead of Romney, which I'll tell you wasn't real good. And you know, he never wanted to be. Nobody would want the job. And you know, I'm not an Obama hater by any means. Not by any means. Disappointed, but not an Obama hater.
Have somebody in there because we can't have Hillary Clinton, and we can't have Jeb, the crime syndicate, Bush, and Rand Paul, the Israeli.
We're not going to judge everyone. We defend the United States. We're not going to punish individual people except on the list we've got. The problem with that list happens to be bigger than the New York phone directory.
Thank you, Gordon. Thank you, Jim. This is the Micro Effect Network. John Stokes, The Edge, and this Veterans Today News Report. Thank you both very much.